Hi, it's Paul Maunder from Production Expert, and in this video we'll be looking at Auto-Tune SoundSoap from Antares. SoundSoap is a noise reduction and audio restoration plugin. It's available exclusively within Auto-Tune Unlimited, a suite of plugins which of course includes the famous Auto-Tune pitch correction software in various forms, but also this useful tool which we'll take a look at now. The interface has various parts to it. This large area here is referred to as the wash window. When you play audio, it displays a spectrogram, allowing you to visually identify any issues with the audio. There's also an input level adjustment slider, and you can boost the output level once you've applied the noise reduction. At the bottom we have the denoising controls. SoundSoap provides de-click to remove clicks and crackles, de-clip to repair audio which was recorded too loud, de-hum, a de-esser, and noise reduction with a learn function so you can give it a sample of the noise you need to remove. The noise reduction knob of course controls how much noise you're actually removing. The noise tuner might be a bit less obvious at first, but it's essentially a threshold control for the noise reduction. The further to the right you turn it, the higher the threshold. Generally with noise reduction you want to set a threshold at the point where it's removing the noise itself, but is having as little impact as possible on the signal you actually want to keep. We'll give this a try shortly. The track control will automatically reduce the amount of noise reduction applied to the audio during louder parts of the material. This is designed to minimise the amount of artifacts introduced by the noise reduction. Finally, in this section, there's a button which allows you to output the noise only. This means you can listen to just what's being removed, and it's often an easier way to check that you're not adversely affecting the part of the audio you actually want to keep. As you can see, there's also an on-off button in this section. Once you've set the noise reduction, there's an enhance section where you can boost the frequency range if you think, for example, that it might have been attenuated a little bit by the processing you've applied. There are options for low, mid and high frequencies. Up to 2 of these can be selected at once. Personally, I found that the high frequency boost is the most useful, as you'll see shortly. Lastly, there are low and high cut controls and an expander. Antares have designed SoundSoap as an easy way to reduce noise in recordings without having to spend too much time tweaking lots of controls. I'm interested to see how well this works in a post-production context. In this session, I've got various pieces of audio, each with some kind of noise problem which needs addressing. Okay, let's start out with a piece of audio which I think could be the easiest to fix. It sounds like this.
Accenture is a global professional services company and provides strategy, consulting, technology and operations services.
You can clearly hear there's some low frequency noise in there. You can see this buildup of energy in the lower part of the spectrogram indicates that, and it's obvious in the waveform as well. So I think in this case, rather than try and de-hum it, this might actually be simple. We could just use the low cut. Let's give that a go first of all.
Accenture is a global professional services company and provides strategy, consulting, technology.
Okay, that's a big improvement. If you're the kind of person who prefers to actually see the effects of the processing in the waveform, of course, real-time plugins won't do that, then you might want to render it as Audio Suite, and there is an Audio Suite version of this. So let me open that. So in the Audio Suite version, let's click on the little preview button.
Accenture is a global professional services
Increase the low
company
cut.
and provides strategy, consulting, technology and
render.
operations services.
There you go. And of course that low frequency problem in this case was quite severe. You can see it's probably still there to an extent in the audio, but we could render it again if we needed to. For now, let's move on to the next one, which is labelled Horrendous Hum. And guess what? There's a horrendous hum in the signal.
99% of our work is Volkswagen because that's where the big market is. But we do.
Okay, really prominent hum in the recording. This was recorded in the UK where the main supply is 50 Hertz. So let's start with this, play the audio, and then what we want to do is increase the number of harmonics, but we don't want to go too far with it. So whenever you're dealing with mains hum like this, which has harmonics or multiples of the fundamental frequency, you want to basically increase the harmonics until you've got rid of the noise, but don't go any further. The reason is the further you increase it, the more it's going to take out parts of the frequency spectrum that you actually want to keep. And if there's no noise there, don't take it out. Let's give this a shot.
99% of our work is Volkswagen because that's where the big market is.
Sounding pretty good.
We do Vitos and Sprinters and Crafters.
Perfect.
You know, roll up to sort of like motorhome conversions.
That's quite a prominent and obvious difference. Let's just A/B that. So I'm just going to bypass the plugin.
99% of our work is Volkswagen because that's where the big market is.
Put it back in.
But we do Vitos and Sprinters and Crafters.
Excellent. And just one last time, actually, let's render this one as Audio Suite, just so that we can see the effect, because that waveform is really bothering me. So 50 Hertz, and it was 4. Render. Wow, major difference. Okay, now let's stick with the real-time version from now on. Okay, moving on, we've got some audio with some very severe crackle.
I think it's a real mix, and we have certain countries like Norway where I think it was last year 22% of all.
That's so severe that I don't think we're going to be going for complete removal, but if we can notably reduce it, I'll be happy with it. So we're going to use the declick section here, and it's very simple, just a single dial. Let's give it a go.
I think it's a real mix, and we have certain countries like Norway where I think it was last year 22% of all new vehicles were electric. But then there are certainly other countries where that's a much smaller percentage. So for me,
that sounds quite good to me, actually. If we do an A/B comparison, here it is in bypass, and then I'll switch it in partway through.
I think it's a real mix, and we have certain countries like Norway where I think it was last year 22% of all new vehicles were electric. But then there are certainly other countries where that's
And that's a decent result. It's quite rare that you would get such severe crackle on a recording, so the ability with a single control to make a notable difference like that, I'm quite impressed with. Now we've got one that is particularly bad, and you can see it's called heavy clipping. I think I'm going to use the Audio Suite version for this. I kind of like to alternate between Audio Suite and real time depending on what I'm doing, and also Audio Suite can be useful if you've got other stuff on the track elsewhere and you want to apply different settings. So before I apply anything, let me just run this in its raw form. This is an example of something which has been recorded far too loud, and we've got really heavy clipping in the recording. Okay, clearly the worst part of that is this part. It's far too loud. So let's go into the plugin, preview this, and then just switch on declip. This is an example of something which has been recorded far too loud, and we've got really heavy clipping. Okay, and then render it. We can see the visual difference in the waveform. Let's take a listen to that. This is an example of something which has been recorded far too loud, and we've got really heavy clipping in the recording. And with very little effort there, I've actually managed to make a notable improvement to that recording. Okay, moving on again. We're going to have a look at this one, which is called Fan. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Now, if you look at the spectrogram, anything which has a lot of horizontal lines going across it like this, that's indicative of some kind of continuous noise, and it has multiple different frequencies. You could not get rid of this simply with EQ, it's too complex. So fortunately, in this recording, we have a section which is just noise. So we're actually going to use the learn function within the plugin. So I'll play a little bit of this, click on learn. Okay, and we've essentially created a noise profile, which the plugin can then use to extract that from the file. So now I'm going to play it, maybe start with the noise reduction at 0 and then gradually introduce it. It's always a balance between noise reduction and artifact, so we'll take it a little bit too far, and then we'll see if we can adjust the noise tuner, which is essentially the threshold. Here we go. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Let's mess with the tuner. Right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. See, that's too much. We can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully and if you want to, of course, you can output the noise only to see how much of the actual original signal is being taken out. Ideally, you don't want to hear too much of the voice finding its way into that noise, because that's going to be taken out. Here. Let me just give it one more listen before I actually commit to this. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Okay, I think I'm just going to back off a little bit with the noise reduction. Let's try 12 dB. And it does seem to be affecting the high frequencies a little bit. So I'll go into the enhance section, make sure the high frequency button is selected, and then just gradually increase this just to restore some of those lost higher frequencies. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, or at least reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this, and let's just reduce it considerably with SoundSoap. Here I am standing right by a fan. It's very obvious on the recording. Hopefully we can remove this. Okay, not bad. Let's give it another go on something else. So I'm just going to bypass the plugin for a second, and this one is called Amplifier Hum. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar amplifier. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. Okay, so once again in the spectrogram, you can see that characteristic noise there. Horizontal banding indicating we've got some noise there. So again, we've got a section of noise only. So I'll run it, click on the Learn button. Take the plugin out of bypass, of course, and let's see what we can do with this. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar amplifier. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar amplifier. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar. And once again, we'll take a listen to the noise only. I think listening to the noise on its own could actually be an effective way of setting the noise tuner, aka threshold. Maybe there. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. And again, we'll do an A/B comparison. So here's no noise reduction. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar amplifier. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. And with the noise reduction switched in. In this recording, I'm standing next to a guitar amplifier. Not the ideal conditions to be making a recording. Let's see what we can do with it. So, a good improvement. Not much effort on my part. I haven't had to spend ages learning anything overly complex. There's not too many controls to mess with. So this is a good alternative to complex noise reduction software, especially for anyone who's new to noise reduction and just wants to get a decent result with minimal fuss. Thanks for watching.